half a listen. Expect the Spanish Inquisition. It's head first only television.
Good evening, Ryako Music. Hello, it's Thursday the 13th of August. Welcome to a quite warm, hello array of emotions. Welcome to a quite warm but not sweltering studio. It's 27.5 Celsius in here. We had a massive thunderstorm here yesterday, which broke the heat wave. Wobby, good evening. And it's actually been quite manageable today, which has been lovely. I have lightning watches, amber warnings of lightning or yellow warnings of lightning in the area until Monday. And so, being a nerd, because this is what nerds do, I've been following real-time lightning maps on me spherics from lightningmaps.org. And there was a strike just the other side of the M5 from Bradley Stoke about 10-15 minutes ago. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet. What's me weather forecast? See, I got my yellow warning up for tonight. They've actually changed this. Originally, that was a big black cloud with lightning bolts coming out of it. So, good evening, Atitlan. So, yeah, my expected lightning storm for tonight looks like it's been deferred, which is a bit sad. But what have we got tomorrow? So tomorrow's kind of rain. Saturday's just rain. Sunday's just rain. Monday's just rain. So we might not get thunderstorms. But weather radar, there's a few blobby bits. That's Malmesbury. That's about what? 15 miles to my east. The weather's sort of coming this way, so yeah, maybe we'll get something, maybe we won't. But just so long as it stays cool. So something is making strange squeaky noises. I have a feeling that I know what it is, because I think it's my JX3P playing up, so I'm just going to have a look at it. Yes. It's having power stuff. I think there's a dicky solder, a dry solder joint on the circuit board in it, and when you push the slider it goes crunch crunch crunch, which it shouldn't, but every now and again it makes that strange noise and sets itself back to the first patch in memory. So I might have to get somebody to have a look at that. So, how's it going, everybody? Everybody's saying, give us your rain. It didn't actually rain that much here. We got about 2 15-ish minute downpours, and it had evaporated by midnight. But the thunder was absolutely incredible. I have never heard a thunderstorm like it here, and I've lived here 25 years. It was continuous. For an hour. It was not individual crashes of thunder. It was just a complete, continuous low rumble, a bit like an earthquake. So I recorded it, of course. So expect a thunderstorm track on 5090 in the not too distant future. I still have to do my wild track ambient piece with the audio from Frankfurt am Main's railway station that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. I haven't done that yet, but we'll come on to that in a minute. So first things first, housekeeping. Hello if you're watching on Twitch. Thank you very much. Please follow me if that is your thing. I will be very grateful. I'm gradually building up followers. I've got 16 followers now. How did that happen? So brilliant. Thank you for following me if you follow me. So what else has happened? Yes, YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, there are playlists for the Thursday show, which this is, and also the Sunday night show, which is a bit more sort of educational for sort of starters, beginnery type people, which is called the 50/90 show, which is about 50/90, which is the songwriting challenge that I'm doing at the moment. And there'll be more about that in a minute. Please subscribe. Please click the little notify bell at the bottom, and please click like if you're watching this video after the fact on YouTube, because I spent probably hours editing it down. I am now spending, on average, about a day and a half a week editing video. And how did that happen? It's most bizarre. Right, Riaka Music says in the vet that, oh, you had to take Queenie to the vet. Oh, that's not good. Queenie is a very large, very, very fluffy cat who is showing her age a bit at the moment, but she's lovely. So all the best to Queenie. Right, so that's Twitch. That's YouTube. Please let me know the sort of stuff that you'd like me to cover in these shows, because the main things that I wanted to cover in 50/90, apart from Sunday's show, I've kind of done now. So any feedback on the sort of things you'd like me to do would be most welcome, either in the chat or in the forums on 50/90, or just email me at headfirstonly.gmail.com, which is fairly easy to figure out because I'm headfirst only absolutely everywhere. So that's that. Yeah, as you can see from this, which is very nice heated pad that Helen got me for my birthday. It's basically just lavender scented wheat that you put in the microwave and warm up. And it's been easing my elbow out, which is still giving me grief. It's not as painful as it was. I think I'm actually beginning to sleep a bit better as a result of it not being as painful. But one of the tracks that I did this week, I made the mistake of thinking, oh, I can play some guitar now. Nope. Bad move. It hurt like hell. So I've been working exclusively with synthesizers ever since. And we'll cover those tracks a bit later on. But the other big news this week, of course, is, oh my God, I'm 60. Had a really good day on Tuesday, got some really cool stuff, had some lovely cards and phone calls and messages and online stuff from friends and relatives. And thank you very much, everybody who said happy birthday. Yuha, good evening. I was hanging out with you on Januarius's Twitch stream this afternoon, where he was drawing some ace drawings of John Lithgow and Peter Weller. You see the Buckaroo Banzai influence coming through here. Could be possibly the responsibility of yours truly, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And it was good fun. So do watch Januarius's stream when he's online, because he does a lot of computer graphic stuff, work with Photoshop and drawing actually online as it happens. And Mel says, oh, I saw those drawings. They were great. They were indeed. So, yeah, always good to plug. Talking of plugs, tomorrow evening at roughly 18:30 BST, which is 6:30 Friday evening, on BBC Radio 3's In Tune programme, which is presented by the wonderful and very, very lovable Sean Rafferty. My Facebook friend, thereminist Carolina Ike, will be on being interviewed about her work. So if you can get Radio 3 on the radio or stream it live, which I think most of the world can, tune in to In Tune with Sean Rafferty tomorrow evening at 6:30 and hear somebody talking about theremins. Woo! Right. Yes. Streams. So, 5090 show on Sunday. Used to know on 5090 set me a challenge. He said, yeah, you've got all this gear. And various people on 5090 have said that looks like a complete, equipment gearhead's wet dream. And yeah, I get that. I've spent 40 years collecting this stuff. Don't need it. And so he said, all right, prove it. So I'm going to on Sunday. I'm going to make a track just with a microphone, and it's not even going to be this microphone. It's going to be an SM57, which I've got plugged into the desk at the moment. I'm just going to use an SM57 and one musical instrument and the free open source software Audacity for recording it, and nothing else, which is going to be fun. What's going to be even more fun is that I'm obviously not able to play guitar at the moment, so I will be playing a rather more unusual musical instrument. It's not any of those. So tune in on Sunday to see me make a complete fool of myself online, live, as it happens, with one instrument, my voice, and a microphone and a copy of Audacity. And we'll see where we get to in an hour. The idea is I want to write a song. I want to write a song because I'm still behind target on 5090. I've got 21 songs written, and I think if my calendar is more or less right, I should be on about 23 or 24 by this point. So I've got some catching up to do. So I'm hoping to get one done tomorrow, and then on Saturday it's form stock, and I will be online on Twitch as per usual, but at 11 p.m. British time, which is midnight European time, but it's sensible times in the afternoon in the States. So please tune in and watch. So the Saturday, I'm going to be using all this gear. I'm basically going to do a skirmish. And if you've any familiarity with the HFO material on 5090 or form, you'll know I don't do skirmishes, so that's going to be fun too. So the idea is I'm going to see what I can come up with in an hour, and I have a deadline on the Saturday show to write a song for 5090 live while people are watching me and mocking me on Twitch. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so onto the music, which is kind of what tonight's normally about. As you can see, I've got my good evening laser. Are you a mixer? I do all sorts of stuff, but yeah, the mixing desk does get used quite regularly. So yeah, I'm a bit of a Steely Dan fan, and every year for sounds a bit like a David Blaine set. Yeah, am I going to do it inside a transparent box? Haven't decided yet. Could be a challenge. Writing music in form stock is such a good idea, says Maurice. Thank you. I remain to be convinced. I have a feeling it could go terribly wrong, but given my record, I think we can almost guarantee it'll go terribly wrong. Something will go wrong in here, because something always does go wrong in here, but we'll just have to cross that bridge when we come to it. So, yes, Steely Dan. Every year for 5090, I make an effort to write something that I would like to think would be the sort of thing that Steely Dan would do if they were as rubbish at playing everything as I am. So I played you the bare bones of it last week. Now I know Atitlan's very kindly left me a comment on 5090 about the end result, but the end result is called the discomfort zone. And as you can see, I used the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package template. So there are some, 40 odd, 50 tracks, not all of which I got used, but I had fun doing it. As you can see, there is one guitar track, which I did after I played the bass line, which was played on the RG9 9-string that I've got. I tried on the JD 4-string bass that I've got, which is an active bass, and Laser says, "Can you sing?" Mate, you are about to find out, but the answer is not really. Doesn't stop me. Yeah, I tried recording with the active bass, which is a JD, and it hurt too much. So the Ibanez, and if I just go back to the main camera, I'll show you the Ibanez, because it is a very silly thing. So this is the Ibanez RG9BK. It's 9 strings. The lowest string is a C sharp. So it goes C sharp, F sharp, B, and then E, A, D, G, B, E, like a more sane electric guitar. So I tend to use this primarily these days as a bass guitar. So it's got quite a nice bass tone. Array of Emotion says, time to play some of that Meshuggah. It's actually one of the reasons why I got this particular model, is because 2 of the guys in Meshuggah got these when they were released, moving up from the more traditional gent 8-string. This one just goes down to the C sharp, which is ridiculous. But it's got a nice tone to it, and the reason I like playing it is because the fingerboard is pretty much flat. It's like a cricket bat. It takes some adjusting if you're only used to a 6-string guitar, and you start putting your fingers and you think, hang on, what string is that? Because you have rather more strings. But anyway, that's a diversion. So I'll just put this back. So Wobby and I have written several songs together, and one song that Wobby wrote and I just added bits to featured a gentleman by the name of Uncle Rick, and Uncle Rick likes playing musical instruments like that. So that's one thing that Uncle Rick had. The other one, which has even more strings, is this, which is a Chapman stick. So again, this goes down to the C below the E on the bass guitar and is hugely percussive. I mean, if I plug this one in, you see what I mean. It's also one of those instruments that you have to wear. So January says only dogs can hear it. The treble side is actually the same as a guitar, but I haven't got that plugged in at the moment. But if you like Peter Gabriel, this is what Tony Levin uses on most of the bass on the first 4 or so Peter Gabriel albums. Lovely bit of kit, stupidly expensive. I bought this off a mate of mine who decided he was going to be a stick player, and he was a guitarist, and he couldn't get used to the independent movement for left and right. But I was a keyboard player, and it was like I picked it up and went, oh yeah, I get this. So he eventually sold it to me. And I've had it ever since. Lovely, lovely instrument that I don't think I've actually used this year on 5090 yet. So the stick might be actually a lot better on my elbows than playing guitar, because it's mainly the right hand. The left hand is just supporting it, so I might try that at some point. Anyway, after that diversion, let's return to our Steely Dan stuff. So the RG9 was the bass, and I've got a little Telecaster. That's it. Ryako Music says, don't push it until you're healed. Absolutely. I am very, very aware of messing up my elbow would not be a good idea at the moment. So I will be staying off the stringed instruments. And in fact, this stuff which I did on Monday, Tuesday was the last time I touched a guitar until I just gave you a demo there. So yeah, I've got a little Squier Telecaster that again I picked up second hand from, or in fact it was probably about third hand from my local guitar shop. Went in one day and Denver, hello Denver if you're watching, basically said, "Yo, you like Telecasters? Have a look at this one." And like an idiot, I picked it up and played it. And it was under 200 quid, so it was like, yes, I'll have that, thank you. But, so, I don't know if you're aware of Steely Dan. I had a fascinating conversation with a fellow 5090 participant who absolutely staggered me by leaving a comment that said, yeah, not familiar with Steely Dan, but I like the sound of what you've done. It's like, what? So I immediately, of course, deluged him with links to documentaries about them on YouTube and told him which albums to buy, because that's what I do. And if you're interested, start with Asia and then go on to Pretzel Logic. Both absolute classic albums. But Steely Dan, which was mainly the brainchild of Donald Fagen and Walter Becker, who sadly has passed away a couple of years ago. They named their album, or they named their band, after a gigantic steel dildo that features in a William Burroughs novel. So there's that for a start. They are not your average band. January says, I get a Steely Dan on Spotify occasionally, but they don't much grab me. Array of Emotion says, got to be honest, I don't know any Steely Dan. Okay, I'm disappointed in you guys. I really am. There is a Donald Fagen solo album called The Night Fly. And for audiophile geeks, and I've known a few of those in my time, Donald Fagen's The Night Fly was the album that audiophiles used to demo their systems. There is a track on it called The New Frontier. It was basically about a kid growing up in America in 1959, which was International Geophysical Year for science nerds like me. And there are various songs about IGY and various aspects of IGY and the Cold War and McCarthyism and all sorts of stuff like that. And there's an album track called New Frontier, which had a video that was made by Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, who were the people behind Max Headroom, that featured a very young Rick Moranis as the protagonist. He's in quite a few of Fagen's videos for some reason. But anyway, they have a style. Their style basically, if I said electric piano and horns and the occasional blistering but laid back guitar solo and synthesizer on the top, then that's Steely Dan. So that's kind of where I was coming from. If you know drummers, then you may be familiar with something called the Purdy Shuffle. So Bernard Purdy, I've forgotten his surname now. Is it Williams? Was the drummer who invented a particular way. And it's sort of kind of half-time and kind of backbeaty. But the Purdy Shuffle has been copied by so many artists over the years. And where did he start doing it? Asia. Steely Dan. He said, I'll just do the Purdy Shuffle. So he did, and just made it utterly brilliant. Ashland says, that Hats by the Blue Nile and Spirit of Eden by Talk Talk, the audiophile demo collection. Yeah. I would also add Donald Fagen's Kamakiriad, particularly if you've got a surround system, because the beginning of the first track on Kamakiriad starts with electric piano, of course, and horns, of course, because it's Steely Dan. But it also features Donald Fagen snapping his fingers. And on a surround sound, each finger snap comes from a different speaker, and the finger snaps go right round the room as the introduction plays in. But enough of that. This is the track, so I'm going to play it for you.
Discomfort zone.
Riako Music says, I'm digging it. Thank you. That actually turned out a lot better than I expected it to. That's also the first time I've played it to you guys where you've heard the entire stereo mix, because I realised after last Thursday's show that I hit the Zoom Q8 that I use for my audio feed. And as a result, the left-hand channel had disappeared. So all you were hearing was the stuff on the right, which kind of sucks. But anyway, so as Mel will no doubt have twigged, there is a whole bunch of automation on the dynamics and the expression. So Wobby, here's your CC11 controller in action. This is the kind of stuff that I use it for. I've actually been experimenting with a bunch of stuff. So if I just go back. I got myself one of these. So it was literally 30 quid from Gear for Music. So it's a little MIDI pad. So it's got 12 pads that have note information. But it's got a CC11 fader on it. So I can actually now play with the expression as I'm recording a take on the Korg. So I haven't really got to grips with it yet because I only got it last week. But shiny, it's got lights and pads that light up and a blue LED, and it's got multiple presets. Automation, the Studio Professional's magic flavour, absolutely, as January says. I'm going to give another shout out because I've been watching his YouTube videos a lot this week to ThinkSpace's Guy Mitchell-Moore, who has all the controllers under the sun and the new Native Instruments S2 88 key keyboard all mapped into his DAWs, and the enthusiasm with which he embraces playing with automation and he says, because that's what he does for a living, he makes scores for a living, it's this automation, it's these wiggly bits that make the difference between a piece of music that sounds like a synth making a saxophone sound and something that looks like a real or sounds like a real saxophone player. January says, I hold control and draw lines like in paint. That's kind of what I was doing. Riako Music says, I really ought to get stuff with wiggly bits. Any recommendations? Mate, you are doing absolutely fine as you are. And literally these were just drawn with the mouse. I sat down and thought, okay, where are the crescendos? Where are the diminuendos for each instrument? And that's kind of where I was coming from with this. But if now I'm gonna, let's see if this works. I am going to switch to the other side of the room. This is a first. Well, it's not a first, but it's something I haven't done for a couple of weeks, so it will probably go catastrophically wrong, but let's see. First of all, I'm going to turn on the NT1A mic, which you can see there, which says Rod, although it's actually Röder. So bear with me a second. Right, that's now on. So all right, can you hear me with this okay? Looks for feedback. Okay, I'm gonna do a bit of showing you what the Korg does, because the Korg has a number of patches that actually have pre-built in dynamics and expression. So one of the big things that brass tracks do is something called a sforzando, where when you play a note and you hold it, it gets louder rather than softer. And there is an absolutely gorgeous brass Sforzando patch on the M3, and this is what it sounds like. Plus, the Korg is also velocity sensitive, so if I wallop the keys, it does something entirely different. Kind of limited use, so let's pick a different patch. This one's called French Horn Heroics. And again, wallop the keyboard. One of the main patches on the Steely Dan track was just big band unisons. So again, lots of dynamics depending on attack. And the other one that I really like, and I've actually used it in the past, I used this track on, or this patch on something called Fancy Up, which I did a few years ago, which is marching band. So it's basically bass drum, clarinets, triangle, and I think there's probably a cornet stuck in the back there somewhere. So it sounds like this. So you get the idea. So did you get rather quiet? Okay. Let's turn the studio back up a bit. So here's the marching band. But let's turn the road down. So I tend to use the Korg almost as much as I use the BBC Symphony Orchestra for the brass sections, because I still find especially the horns on this can, without the dynamics and without the expression, they can sound a bit synthesizer-y, whereas the Korg tends to be more convincing, and the saxophone solo is actually a Korg patch, so I'll just put that up. I need more arms. This is the thing. So again, lots of dynamics and different voicings. Ryako Music says you need to become an octopus, and the Johanna followed up with tentacles first only. Whoa. Yes. So yeah, I had fun, as you can tell, with the brass section on this. But the weirdest thing was I don't really like singing, and singing 4-part harmonies, but I did.
That they have planned. You're discovered, your cover's blown. Step inside the discomfort zone.
Ryako Music says, I guess one of the issues with a lot of brass sounds is that you can't hear things like air displacement. Yeah, and again, Wobbie says, I loved your harmonies on that when I listened to it. Chris, do you do any pitch correction? Only when the results of me just sitting in front of here are so bad that I daren't unleash them on the rest of the world. I do have Melodyne. It's not the latest copy. It's Melodyne 4. I've only used it once so far, this 5090, and that was on fretless bass, because with the elbow, I couldn't stay in pitch, so I just gave myself a little bit of help with Melodyne on the fretless bass. But other than that, I haven't Melodyned my vocals at all this year. Whether that's A, because I'm getting lazy and just can't be arsed putting everything through Melodyne, or B, I might actually be improving as a singer, which would not be before time, let's say. God, look after me, voice. Yano Aries says, yeah, it's a lot of work. Ryako says, I totally Melodyne my... Dude, you don't need to. You're just sickeningly good when you just are you. And I know this for a fact because I've been in the same room when you've recorded vocals. But Robbie says, I feel you're getting more and more comfortable and confident in your voice. Mate, it's not just the vocals, it's all of this as well. When I started Form in 2009, I really didn't feel comfortable letting anybody hear any of the stuff that I did, and with good reason. It was frankly appalling, but I've gained in confidence as I've gained in ability, I think. And as I've always say, taking part in 5090 and February album writing month are such a good way of getting better at stuff and doing it in an environment where people are totally on your side and want to be part of the game, part of the team. Ryako Music says, it's okay, we all sucked. Lol. Wobby says, totally. Yeah, I listened to some of the stuff that I did I think I did one track the first year for Form, and maybe 4 the year after, and goodness me, they were awful. But from that, if we go back to Ableton, so that was my Steely Dan track, which I'm very, very pleased with. The next track, I decided, as I was 60 on Tuesday, that I was going to write something that kind of commemorated the fact, and I decided to call it 6 Decades because I'm 60. And it was really odd. I got the bass, I got the drum track down, and I usually start with a drum track. So it's one of the New York MIDI packs that you can buy as an add-on to Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer. So the drum track was I was pretty happy with. So it's really kind of funky and everything. And then I opened up Arturia's Analog Lab, which is their sort of greatest hits of the V collection and Pigments. Picked a patch, added a bit of funky Jupiter 8 as a pad over it. No, actually, the Jupiter 8 was a bit of bass, and then the Arturia's Oberheim OBXA for a nice sort of melodic pad underneath it. And that was the night it was stupidly hot in here, so I just shut everything down and went away. Came back the next day and utterly hated what I'd created. And it was all because of the patch that I'd used on Analog Lab. So if I open Analog Lab, what it is, it lets you combine a whole bunch of things, so you can have multiple synthesizers. So I'd got an ARP 2600 patch, and it was cheesy and trebly and a bit too sort of Human League. And I was completely blocked for about 2 hours and just thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to can't play guitar, so I can't compensate for the suck on the keyboards by playing guitar. What am I going to do? And eventually I binned the preset that I'd used for the Analog Lab track and just went back to it. I went, let's do something with a completely different vibe to it. And again, stuck with the ARP 2600, so ended up with these two. And suddenly it was like, all right, yeah, I know where this is going. Januaris says the music is getting sort of loud compared to voice. Yeah, I've been fiddling with volumes. Let me just turn Ableton down a bit. Hang on a sec. Okay, so I've tweaked the volume, so I can actually hear the mic on this now is a lot louder. Even in the room, I can hear it, which I couldn't before. So Ryako Music says, I'm getting King Crimson frame by frame vibes. Well, it's funny because at that point, it's like I suddenly got a whole set of lyrics into my head and recorded them immediately, just in case. I didn't even write them down. I literally made up the lyrics on the spot. And just for giggles, I decided to record them with the Bromley accent that I grew up with. And if I solo the vocals, this is what those vocals sounded like. If you could see the things I've seen, be the places that I've been, speak the language that I speak, then I wouldn't be unique. So as soon as I had that lyric, I had the song. It was really, really odd. It just happened. And I know what was really weird is even on the last track, which I don't think I sound anything like him on the Steely Dan track. I mean, I certainly don't sound anything like Donald Fagen. It would be nice to sound like Donald Fagen, but I certainly do. A Bromley accent is basically you talk like this, and there's a bit of South London in it, but there's an awful lot of Billy Idol in it as well, and there are certain vowel sounds that you make. And I used to go out with a girl who said she never really understood that there was a Bromley accent until she was in Australia and heard Billy Idol interviewed on the radio, and suddenly went, oh, I get it. So that's kind of the Bromley accent, but basically it's David Bowie. So as various people had said, oh, you sound like David Bowie. I guess because I've got a deep voice and because I'm British. And if you've lived in the Midwest or Canada or something like that, the nuances of South London accents maybe aren't that noticeable. But I thought, yeah, why not? I'll turn the Bromley up to 11, and we'll come up with something. So after I'd written what ended up being kind of the second half of the verse, or in effect the chorus, I'd got the whole structure just dropped into place, and there's no synths, no guitars, no bass, nothing. It's just synthesizers. There's even a bit of mellotron for that 60s vibe. And the OBXA as well for a bit of the for the breaks, and this is what it sounds like. If you could say the things I say, how I can play. If you could do what I can do. If you'd gone through what I've gone through. If you could see the things I've seen. Be the places that I've been. Speak the language that I speak. Then I wouldn't be unique. So I went from completely loathing that to basically sitting down and playing it back and thinking, that's not bad. So I've released it as a single. So it's now on Bandcamp, and you've got the lyrics and everything else. So just as a single, even did my standard VAG group rounded logo for the cover. So nothing fancy, but I was really pleased with that one. So that's now available on headfirstonly.bandcamp.com for your download, as is the rest of my discography, which is kind of getting quite an impressive little collection these days. I mean, a lot of these are singles, but there's 4 or 5 albums in there now, and there will be another one on the way shortly. So Mel asked, can you describe a Bromley accent versus your accent now? I think basically the Gorblimey London aspect of it has been watered down somewhat, and I worked with a guy who's actually a professional actor when we were doing some training videos for British Energy a few years ago. And he said, I can really hear you beginning to pick up the Bristol twang, which is very, very much more. I'm not a linguist, so I really don't know the technical terms for it, but you tend to say R rather than R a lot more. So there is, especially the way you pronounce certain words, I'm beginning to pick it up, or I'm beginning to drop. I mean, I come from Lytham St Anne's, which is a small Lancashire town just south of Blackpool, famed for The Tower and various movies, including Funny Bones, which came out in the... Yeah, remember that? With Lee, what's his name? A comedian. Really, really odd film, but all filmed and shot around Blackpool. There is... Riaka Music says Rebecca versus Rebecca. Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. I was talking with Yano Arias earlier about Blackpool and John Mahoney, the actor, who went on to be quite famous as Frasier's dad Martin in the sitcom, because there is the Jane Leeves character of Daphne in Frasier is supposed to come from Manchester / Lancashire-ish. And Jane Leeves is actually from Essex, which is the Bromley accent turned up to 11. And it's, cool, blimey, he's a villain. Like the Sweeney Todd Flying Squad, that lot. John Thor, Dennis Waterman, Arthur Daly, all that. That sort of accent is Jane Leeves' normal accent. So she had to act to put on the Mancunian accent, whereas John Mahoney, who plays an American on Frasier, was actually from Blackpool. And there is one episode of Frasier where he just takes the piss out of Daphne and does it by doing a mock Lancashire accent. And, of course, being from Lancashire, it's absolutely spot on, and he nails it. It's really fun. You can watch it on. That clip is on YouTube, and it's something like Martin does Daphne's accent or something like that. Well worth watching. Do check it out. But now this is the other thing. So Lancashire, which is the accent that I had when I was a kid, and I've still got bits of it. So I say Bath rather than Bath. And I say fast rather than fast. And there are times in my songs where I actually consciously change my pronunciation of certain words because I know it's going to sound weird to people if I sing them the way that I would speak words like fast. So, I've got the hiccups. I've been drinking water too fast. So, Ashitland says, it's amazing just how subtle elements of speech can be to make you know someone has lived in a certain area long enough to pick up some of the accent. It's absolutely true. And Lancashire, Wobby says Lancashire is the one I hear strongest in your accent. And it's funny because I only really lived there for 4 or 5 years, and then we moved down, and I grew up in Stafford and Stone, sort of Stoke-on-Trent way, which is more top end of Black Country than the bottom end of the north. But there are towns in Lancashire. I can tell the difference between somebody who has grown up in Bolton and somebody who has grown up in Blackburn, and they're probably only about 25 miles away from each other. But you can tell the difference, or I can tell the difference. It's really, really weird. Down here, it's not. I mean, there is a phraseology that actors use about doing a Farmer Giles accent. They call it mummerzet, because you don't say S's, you say Z's, and it's or. There is a pop group in the UK that I'm sure everybody who's UK based will have heard of, the Wurzels, who have been going for about 40 years now. And I've got a brand new combine harvester. Well, that's prime mummerset, hamming it up, West Country accent. Bristol is a bit more subtle, but there are some bonkers phrases in Bristol, and you never ask, where is that? You always ask, where's that to? And when you get off the bus, after you've taken public transport somewhere, you are required, I think it's probably a law somewhere, you are required to say, cheers, drive. So, yeah. Maurice says, that's interesting. There are often in American cop shows Finnish bad guys, etc. And typically they either have a Russian accent or a Swedish accent. Finns don't have either. Atitlan says, it is probably because it varies so much in very small areas. Ryako Music says, was that English? Yeah. Some of the accent. And I remember when Mum and Dad had an Afghan hound when we were little, and we always used to go on holiday to North Norfolk. So the top end of the curvy bit on the right-hand side of England as you look at the map, East Anglia, so Norfolk and Suffolk. And the Norfolk accent is kind of a bit mummerzet, but there's a lot more aspirated H's, so I do know some linguistics. So you tend to say H when you don't need to. And Mum and Dad took the dog on holiday with them, and we were going through a village somewhere, and the dog was on the lead. And there's a farmer leaning on his gate, just watching the world go by. He goes, "Excuse me, is that a half can?" At which point Dad said, "No, it's a full one." Which we laughed. Ryako Music says, like some of those police officers in Hot Fuzz. Yeah, no, Arius, this is the conversation we were having earlier. Hot Fuzz is set and filmed all around Wells in Somerset, which is just a little bit south of Bristol. And if I remember correctly, it could be wrong, Edgar Wright actually had a summer job stacking shelves in the supermarket that they use for the hostage sequence in Hot Fuzz. And yes, all of Hot Fuzz is Somerset / Bristol / Mummerzet language. And Simon Pegg's from Gloucester. He used to live up the road in Gloucester. So very, very much. And how on earth did we... Oh, yeah, we got onto accents from David Bowie. And David Bowie his stage persona, that accent, and certainly the accent that he used in his early singles, like, and I'm thinking Laughing Gnome, I was walking down the high street when I heard footsteps behind me. That's not even a Bromley accent. That's Anthony Newley, who was a stage actor, who was, well, he was the, if you like, the sort of the fall guy for Rex Harrison's Dr. Dolittle in Dr. Dolittle, which was filmed in Castle Combe, which is about 20 miles from here. So Puddleby on the Marsh, where the dock is, ain't by the sea at all. It's actually just a little river. And it's a beautiful little English village. They don't allow cars through it unless you're a resident. And that's where they filmed the original version, not the Eddie Murphy version, not even the Robert Downey Jr. version. The Rex Harrison version of Dr. Dolittle was filmed just down the road from me. Ryako Music says, "Oh, you went there?" Yes, yeah, I did. I gave you the whole tourist thing, didn't I? We usually, when friends come to stay, I will take them to places like Stonehenge and Castle Combe and Glastonbury, and there was indeed cake, says Ryako Music. But yeah, accents in the UK change ridiculously violently. Within 30 miles, you will be able to notice a difference in where someone is from, even on scales of like 30 miles, because it's, I mean, we're only a small, insignificant, tin pot little nation with delusions of grandeur. Who, I think somebody said there are only like 5 countries in the entire world that England has not tried to invade at some point or other. And I used to work quite a lot with the Norwegian Air Force, and would often go out for an evening out with the lads from the local airbase in Kristiansand in the south of Norway, which has this honking big fort by the harbour. And the walls in Kristiansand's fort they were about 12 feet thick. And I was talking with the major who was sort of looking after us while we were sort of going out on the town and having pizza and drinks and stuff like that. And I said, "Oh, wow, has the fort ever been attacked?" And he said, "Yeah, the only people who've ever attacked it was an English warship who just sort of sailed past in about the middle of the 18th century and just thought, oh, that looks good for a bit of target practice." I mean, there were no hostilities at the time between Norway and England, but the English Navy just decided, oh, let's have a go at blowing that place up. Mad. The Norwegians just thought it was funny because 12-foot thick walls, absolutely nothing happened. Yano Aries said Madonna had a UK accent for a while. There was, because she was married to the guy who directed Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and I can't even remember the guy's name. But Guy Ritchie, thank you, Mel. They did some comedy skits for Comic Relief, and because Guy Ritchie was trying to make it big in LA as a film director, it was Guy Ritchie and Madonna at home, and he was playing the American big shot, and Madonna had just got a pinafore on and the hair in curlers and just going, "Cup of tea, dear." It was just very, very, very strange. Atikland says, "I love Björk's Iceland meets London accent." Yes. Well, I just love all of Björk's stuff. Because I wrote a couple of sidetrack time, but Squirrel, this is what this show's all about. It's just meandering through from one association to the other and going down the rabbit hole and you guys are completely enabling and fueling this, and I love you for it. So let's carry on. Bjork brought an album out a few years ago, which I've been listening to this week because it's one of my favourites, called Biophilia. And there is a track on Biophilia. It may even be the last track on the album. And I was having a conversation about time signatures with somebody, because I don't know if you remember, I'd done a couple of, the road sign, the traffic light on the A636 outside the Cedar Court Hotel in Wakefield in Yorkshire, which had the four signs: frog juggler, chicken whisperer, squirrel matador, and can't remember what the other one was, mole catcher. And that was my prog phase for 5090, so I did 1 in 5/4 and 1 in 7/8. And I'd written a song bemoaning the fact that people prefer 4 on the floor to anything based in 17/8. And somebody said, well, are there any sort of songs written in 17/8? Because I said, yeah, most of the second half of Biophilia has really weird time signatures. And this last track on Biophilia is in 17/8. Yeah, so go Bjork. Ryako Music says, I can totally fake Bjork vocals. Mate, if that is the case, then I think that you and I have to do a song for 5090 where I do the sort of Matt Moss, really weird, processed synthesizer-y vocals. Matt Moss being absolutely brilliant band. They're basically the two guys, MC Schmidt and Drew Daniel, based in, well, they used to be based in San Francisco, but they've moved. They are utter geniuses. They have more synth gear than I could possibly learn how to control in several lifetimes. I've actually performed, in inverted commas, with them at one show in Bristol because MC Schmidt basically had a roll of gaffer tape that he was pulling out and plugging, and then that was being processed by the synthesizers. And I'd been there for the sound check, and they'd made me jump because they plugged something in wrong, and I literally jumped out of my chair, which they found very amusing. So, of course, during the show, and he gets this roll of gaffer tape out and just looks at the gaffer tape, looks at me in the front row, jumps off the stage, hands me the gaffer tape, and then gets back on the stage. So he just goes... So I went further away, and we were plucking the gaffer tape. And so, yeah, I have performed with Matt Moss. But Matt Moss, Vespertine, I think we could do something from that sort of era of Björk. Ryako Music says Chris needs a black wig. Dress Chris as Björk on the cover. Yeah, no, maybe not. Somewhere I have a photograph of me in a very long heavy metal guitarist type wig, and that was New Year's Eve in 1999. Ryako Music says, yeah, I'm so down for this. Yeah, I thought you might be. All right, so that's what we do next week. We'll do a Björk song, and it will be hilarious. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with a couple of American, well, one of them is Canadian, voice actors. Gentleman by the name of Rob Paulsen and another guy by the name of Maurice LaMarche. And you may know them better as Pinky and the Brain. They also did a lot of the Animaniacs voices, and they work on a whole bunch of stuff. But Maurice LaMarche, aside from doing an absolutely spot-on Captain Kirk, does the best Björk impersonation I have ever heard. And there is a podcast called the Nerdist podcast. One of the very first Nerdist podcasts that they ever recorded was basically Chris Hardwick, who's a bit of a douchebag, but we won't mention that, talking with Rob Paulsen and Maurice LaMarche, and they spend 10 minutes of the show in character as Pinky and the Brain. But then Rob Paulsen and Maurice LaMarche just start winding each other up, and it's mayhem. It is absolutely mayhem. It's still one of the funniest things I have ever listened to, and totally recommend it. I've got it on an MP3 kicking around here somewhere. So if you've never heard it, then give me a ping, and I'll make sure that you are able to listen to it, because I don't even know if it's still on the Nerdist website after certain allegations about Mr. Hardwick came to light. I think at one point they just nuked everything that he'd done for the entire network. So yeah, cancel culture. Right. Ryaka Music says, I can cosplay Bjork in a swan dress. Yes. Well, of course, you've got the shoes too, mate. Kirk and Bjork sounds like a... Oh, my God. Wobbie, you are a genius. That's what we do. Kirk and Bjork. I've just got to make it. I'm going to have to wheel out my Shatner, aren't I? Which has been done, because I did a Shatner song a few years ago, which had completely random emphasis on certain words. And yeah, okay, Kirk and Bjork, we're on. Brain sounds so much like Orson Welles. Yeah, it's funny because LaMarche said that he actually based it on a different guy who was, I can't remember who it was, but it was another actor who was quite famous in LA, but most people weren't familiar with him, so they just said, oh, it sounds like Orson Welles. But Pinky and Brain were based on animators on the show. Wouldn't surprise me. Ryaka Music says, yes. Yeah, we have a project here. Thank you to all for... I mean, look, this is synergy, isn't it? This is just creativity as it happens. You saw it live here first, folks. You saw the genesis of what could be very, very, very silly music, and it will be happening on a Twitch channel near you very, very soon. Yeah, I love Pinky and the Brain. I've got all the box sets. January says stage name Dirk. Yes, umlauts, as in Dirk. I, as you can see, have a new fan, which is why I'm not melting in here, because it's kind of warm in here. I don't know if you can see that. Let's go that way. So yeah, it's 34 Celsius in here, but I'm doing all right because I've got this. Got a new fan. I've got a fan. Not quite an admirer, but certainly a fan. But it's Chinese, and I don't know if you can see that. Who puts umlauts over a consonant? Nobody who speaks German, that's for sure. So I was grumbling about that fan. I mean, it was basically just a cheap fan from Amazon, and it's doing the job. And it's not particularly obtrusive, I hope, in terms of the sound. But yeah, I've had it in bits today because the mains lead, which on the box was described as a generous 1.5 meter mains lead, it hardly reached the floor. I measured it. It was actually about 140 centimeters. So it was rubbish. So me being me, I got some terminator blocks and some insulating tape and some old 13 amp 3-ply mains cable, because that thing doesn't even have an earth in it, and pulled it to bits and put a proper heavyweight mains cable on it that's nearly 3 times as long as the one that it was supplied with. Ashitlan says 34. I was melting at 28 in my flat last night. Yeah, get air moving around. It's gone down now. It's 33.5. So I wonder if that means it's going to start raining out there. Be good if it did. But yes, I tend to fade somewhat when the temperature goes above about 25, 26 or so. And that's why I'm several songs behind where I should be on 50/90 at the moment, because it's just too hot in here, which is ridiculous. I mean, during the day, I'm not doing anything. I'm not working at the moment, although I've actually been approached by a company who says, can you do a video conference with us on Monday for a bit of consultancy? So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I've not worked with Russians before, so that could be interesting. Yes. January said, we paid €700 for a movable AC unit, worth every penny. Mate, I'm actually thinking that once this heat wave finishes and we get into like late September, early October, and they're trying to shift stock, I might actually see if I can pick up a portable air conditioning unit for in here for next year. Because yeah, it's just ridiculous when it gets hot in here. And strangely enough, most of the guitars stay in tune, but my Spanish guitar out there, the acoustic nylon string, the strings actually got so taut that they've snapped, so I need to restring that. Ryako Music says, welcome to climate change. Yeah, I've seen it here. I've been living here now for 25 years, so I have noticed differences. First year I moved here, in winter, I started working here in February 1995, and the first 2 months that I worked down here, in February 1995, March 1995, it snowed at least once a week. I don't think we got any snow here last year at all. Certainly not enough to say, I'm not going anywhere today, it's too snowy. And yet there are times when I used to get deluged here and you couldn't actually make it out of the cul-de-sac in the car. Januarius says, it's been raining frogs here. Too snowy. Yeah, you do live in Finland, mate. You're used to this. I bet you all have winter tyres and summer tyres. We just go out and go, oh, it's slippery, and drive into things. The British do not cope with extremes of weather. Rain, yes, we'll just have a cup of tea and put a coat on. But snow, no. January says winter tyres are mandatory. But there you go. Over here, the weather is just so pants that they're not. I think one of my friends has winter tyres that he changes to. But January says, but I think they changed the law because of the climate change. It is quite scary. And last night's thunderstorm here was just beyond anything I have heard here. As you will hear when I play the samples in the track that I'm going to do, which will be based on the recordings. You remember I had the little Tascam DR40 that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Was using that with the doors open in the conservatory and a pair of headphones on, so I could actually monitor what I was listening to. And it's not going to win any awards as a study of meteorological conditions, because the recorder kept on getting dive bombed by a blue bottle, and there's a bloody wood pigeon that stuffs its face on my back lawn when I put bird food out, and then sits on one of the roofs somewhere around the garden and just calls all evening. And wood pigeons just have that song that is not in the remotest bit aesthetically pleasing. It's and Ryako Music says, lol, dumb little wood pigeons. I used to have, back in the days of my midlife crisis, I used to have a Nissan 350Z, which was quite a fast and quite a low clearance sports car. 2-seater, 3.5 litre V8. Lovely car. Best car I've ever had. Stupidly good fun to drive, but it did about 25 miles to the gallon and it ran on super unleaded. So, yeah, that's kind of why I drive a hybrid now. And I can remember taking my dad shopping, and he lived in a little housing estate in North Norfolk called High Kelling, which had speed bumps. So you had to drive at about 1 or 2 miles an hour through the estate. And I'm driving Dad back to the house after we stocked up with food at Budgeon's in town, driving over the speed bumps, so taking it very carefully because I'm not going to take the spoiler off the front of the car. And there are these 2 wood pigeons standing in the middle of the road in front of me. So I go, okay, well, they're going to get out of the way because I'm only doing 2 miles an hour. That's slower than they're walking. So just trundle along, and one of them sees the car and carries on trundling. The other one sees the car and just sidesteps to the side, and it's like, okay, it's not moved out the way yet. Surely it's going to move out the way now, and the distance starts coming down. And then it just disappeared under the line of the bonnet as I hit the horn to get it out of the way. Just heard a clonk and looked behind me, and it's just sitting in the middle of the road in a pile of feathers. Stupid birds. Stupid birds. Birds are the real hooligans. Ryako Music says, especially pigeons, which a friend once described as flying rats. Well, certainly the London pigeons tend to be flying rats, and London pigeons have a hard time because they have a very nasty fungal infection that's going around London pigeons, which cuts off the circulation to their toes, so they end up, the toes drop off, which is why a lot of London pigeons do not appear to have feet, which is a great shame. But I think they're sort of eradicating the disease at the moment. So hopefully, London pigeons in the future will be a little bit more healthy. Peg legs, yeah. I've now got an impression of a pirate pigeon with an eye patch, probably, and probably a tricorn hat. Yep. Oh, yes, very good, Yano Aries. That's so. I'm waffling a bit. We haven't really been talking about music. We're just shooting the breeze, but we have a plan. We have a piece of music. We have Kirk and Bjork. It shall be done. It will happen. So let's get that organised. I will be back here on Saturday, late night, so hopefully it won't be 34 degrees Celsius in here. 11 p.m. UK time, so that's midnight Central European time, but I think it's 3 p.m. Pacific. So please join me if you can for that. I'll be back here for another 50/90 show on Sunday, which should be either a complete hoot or an utter disaster. I haven't actually decided what's more likely at the moment, where I will be attempting to make a piece of music with nothing more than a copy of Audacity, one microphone, and an unusual musical instrument which does not require electricity. So Ryako Music says, I vote for hoot. Well, I kind of hope it'll be a hoot. Yanuary says hootsaster. Yeah. Have them both. Hopefully it will get more viewing figures that way. So I'm going to call it a night for tonight then. Thank you very much for turning up and chatting and providing me with glorious bits of inspiration, which I can now take away and work on. So Mel, I'll be in touch and we'll thrash something out. Maybe Skype and thrash something out of what we're gonna do. And Bobby says, "Yay, thanks, Chris." Yanuary says, "Have a good night, friend." Yeah, same to all of you. Thank you for showing up when I do these, because it makes all the difference when I know I've got a good room to play to. And as we saw this evening, it takes us in the most bizarre, very, very squirrel intensive sidetrack down the rabbit hole diversions, and that's what I am all about, because diversions are my gem. So until next time, wherever you are, stay well, stay safe, and stay sane, and I'll see you in a couple of days' time.